Okay, well, welcome everybody. I should say probably good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are in the world. I'm Ron Chenail. I'm a co-editor-in-chief of the Qualitative Report. I'm joined here by my co-editors-in-chief, Sally St. George and Dan Wolf. We'll introduce the panel in just a couple of minutes. So as you know, the theme for this year's conference is living in a post-COVID world. And I'm such a believer in the theme. I tested positive for COVID last night. So here's the post-COVID world. We're using technology and we're continuing to function and to participate. And so I tried to make it as experiential as I could. So we'll see how it goes. Sorry for my voice, a little rough today. So I have a few announcements for you. And as we were kidding about time zones and things like that, please check your presenting time. It's all on Eastern or standard time, or we like to call it the daylight wasting time. And I don't know how much longer that'll last in the States. That's a big deal over here, about that 1 hour. And so the schedule's out, and Adam's been updating it. Thanks, Adam, for all that you do to manage us cats, because we're certainly a rough bunch to manage. So thank you. You do a wonderful job every year. And so as you look at the at-a-glance schedule, you can see that we have different A, B, C, and D groupings of presentations in multiple Zoom rooms. And all you have to do is click on the Zoom link at the top of each box, and we'll take you in. And we try to keep, the moderators try to keep the presentations in sync so that you can jump from one room to the other and to join on in. So each room has a moderator. And as you say, we have a lot of great presentations going on today as well as tomorrow. So if you look at the schedule at a glance, we have now 4 special events, because we had in vivo power lunch yesterday. And today it's Max QDA at lunchtime. And on Saturday, we have Quirkos. We also have the NSU Qualitative Research Graduate Certificate informational on Saturday afternoon. And then right after that is the TQR editorial board meeting, informational meeting, and everyone's welcome to come to that, kind of give you an update of the qualitative report. So if there is any type of internet interruption, we'll have the conference back online as quickly as possible. If the event one room is down, because the moderators have to go in there to let people into the room, just jump to another room and we'll get the rooms up as quickly as possible. We used to have a vice president of technology said it would be successful, just like if you're in the real world, to go get the person who has the key and go and unlock the room. That's how quickly you want to try to get a Zoom room back up. So a moderator in every breakout room, and as I say, to assist you with the technology that you're using for that. If you go to the TQR.nova.edu page, you'll see that there's a little note from the Qualitative Methods in Psychology Bulletin. They are a publication associated with Qualitative Methods in Psychology section of the British Psychological Society. And there, Adam, look, you're on the ball today. Down there in the chat is the link to that. And if you want to be a beat reporter and write about your experiences, a little bit of autoethnographic interlude in the conference, you're certainly welcome to do that. And Adam, why don't you do the couple announcements about what happens to these little plenaries that we're doing, and also what you've been asking people about sending you their presentations.
Sure. So you may have received an email from me yesterday to the presenters who are interested in sharing their presentation. You can send me a PDF of that presentation to tqr@nova.edu, and we're in the process of adding them to the website. I just posted a link now where you can see a few that we've uploaded already. In addition to that, we're trying to build our YouTube channel. So some of the keynotes and panels and workshops that we're doing, we're recording as well, and we're adding to our YouTube channel. So if you haven't checked that out, I'm posting a link as we speak. And then the last spam that I have for you guys is our podcast channel. I'm going to post a link to the Spotify version of that, but you can check out, we're using some of the content from this conference, but we've also done some interviews in the past, and you can access that via the link that I just posted. So again, thank you all, presenters. If you are interested in sharing your presentation, just please send me a PDF version of that to tqr@nova.edu. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. And so everything we do, we see it as multi-directional. And so we've had requests to talk with authors of new books. Dan did a wonderful interview with a book just about a month or so ago. We are interested in sharing what you have to offer. You know, that's our tagline. Here's where the world comes to learn qualitative research. And so if we can help you with that, Adam is continually telling me things I never heard of. Hey, we could put it here, we could put it there. So, you know, we always say create once, publish everywhere. So that's what we try to do. So that's really an invitation. So, Sally and Dan, why don't you introduce yourselves, and then we'll kind of get into the panel.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sally St. George, Professor Emerita from the University of Calgary, and liking being in that position. It gives me, I think, more time and creativity to devote to TQR.
I'm Dan Wolf. We're married to each other, as you might have surmised from this the screen.
Shared screen. Yeah.
Shared screen. I'm also retired and enjoying every minute of it. So I highly recommend it to all of you when the time is right.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, it's amazing when you don't have to go to meetings you don't want to go to, how much it frees up time in your life. So absolutely. So let's kind of get into it. All of our we're going to go a couple loops around. We're start with Julia, and we're going to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their company, their products, and what was kind of going on 2019, 2020. And then we'll go to Stacy and Dan, and then we'll kind of move into sort of how things are evolving in this post-COVID world and beyond. So, Julia.
All right, thank you. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Julia Gerson. I am here today as the product manager of MaxQDA. Most of you probably know, but MaxQDA is one of the bigger QDA software tools in the world today. It was introduced in 1989. It's for qualitative and mixed methods research. It also has a statistical module for statistic analysis. We're based in Berlin, Germany, which is where I am joining you today. And for just my experience with QDA before COVID, before joining MaxQDA, I was a researcher at the University of Marburg for educational research, and I did a few projects there myself using MaxQDA for the data analysis before jumping ship, leaving academia behind and going to MaxQDA, where for quite a number of years, my responsibility was to create teaching material, webinars, tutorials, the manual. And for 4 years now, I am leading the product management team. So my job is to listen to the community, gather all the feedback from all different directions, and try to make sure that when we build new tools in MaxQDA, that they're as valuable as they can be. So this was the situation before COVID hit us. And then as COVID started, at first we just faced the same difficulties as every other company. We had to move everybody out of their offices. We had to set up the server system, make sure that everything was still delivered on time. All the updates were running, the support was going well, have the phones reach actual people, and keep everybody healthy, of course. But after that, the very first reaction was to make sure that the community had all the tools they had. So right away, we offered a longer trial period to just help those students and teachers that were suddenly faced with not being able to be in the classrooms anymore, not being able to use the computers in their libraries anymore, so they could just bridge that gap in time and just continue working. We have our own publishing house that we released during that time, where we have a lot of free guides that people can use when you're like suddenly needing teaching material. There's a lot of guides that people could then just use freely. And we doubled down on our virtual teaching. We've always offered webinars, so this wasn't something new for us, but I think we had double or twice the number of webinars, and we saw a really, really high interest in the webinars, but also in the video tutorials. So it just became clear that people who are teaching QDA software they were just trying to get us to help them. Like, what can we do really short term to get our students running? And of course, during COVID, we also noticed that the feedback from the users changed quite a bit. I'm sure the others will also say something similar. Digital interviews became really important. Transcripts became really important. Connecting everything, analyzing audio and video. And of course, not being in the same room was a new issue that a lot of teams had to face, that they could no longer copy their data on a USB stick and give it to somebody else. They now had to find other ways to share data and to work together. And during this time, during COVID, we actually developed our Team Cloud, which is a virtual a cloud space where people can just work together collaboratively as a team and not have to be in the same room, but still experience the same advantages of being really close with each other. And yeah, I think you know what I mean. Yeah, so far from me. I don't know who I'm going to hand it over for the first
Stacy.
one.
Great. Thanks, Julia and Ron and Adam. Thanks for inviting me to be a panelist. So I'm Stacy Penna. I'm the Customer Engagement Enablement Director at now Lumivero. We were QSR International, and that happened officially in January. So we now have 5 softwares, NVivo being one of them, and Satavi, and then we have Sonia for student placement, and we actually have some statistical software now, Excel Stat and At Risk. So during this time, the company definitely grew, adding more softwares and companies under one. And my background is I actually used NVivo. That's how I got started with the company, first QSR, for my doctoral work at UMass Lowell. And then right after I graduated, I started working with QSR. We were just building our presence in North America. I think there was 3 of us at that time. So we've grown a lot in North America anyway. And I know a lot of people know QSR started in Melbourne, Australia. And one of the big things that we started, and I think it was very fortunate, we started the NVivo community, and that was my position, NVivo community director, in January 2020. And that ended up being a lucky decision of the company because the community really helped people throughout COVID. So like Julia mentioned, we transitioned. We already had done a lot of virtual events and not events, but webinars and demos of the software. But with COVID coming, there was such a high demand for people to figure out, how am I going to switch from doing in-person collection to having to switch to virtual collection, and just figuring, and how we work as a team and all that as researchers. So we had a series of webinars on, how to collect data, how to find resources that you need online, and got some presenters, and like Julia mentioned, the response was overwhelming. We didn't expect it. We just were like, we want to help people, and people came and got a lot out of it. And then during that time, like, I also started a podcast, and I see a few people here that I've interviewed, Eileen, and a few others for webinars and podcasts. And again, another great way to help people, learn from each other. But again, you don't have to be close together for that. And then we started virtual user group meetings. And so I have worked with our trainers, and that was another great response, because it was a way for people to learn the software better, but then also connect with each other in a safe way during that time. And also at the time, our director of research, Dr. Silvana Di Gregorio, who some of you I'm sure know, she did a research on the impact of COVID, and she's continuing to do that over the last couple of years. And so I can share some of that information with you, but because of all the webinars we did, she sent out a survey to people who attended, and then she followed up with interviews. And then a year later, she followed up with another survey. And now she's also doing more work around that, again, with surveys and interviews. And like, I think what I'm seeing, and what the company's seeing is, virtual is not going to go away. People, now are comfortable with it. It's something people can even participants, right? Not everyone, but people are now used to understanding how to do a Zoom meeting, and how to connect like that. And so one of the things we are also doing at Lumivero is we've partnered with a company called iTrax out of Alberta, Canada, and their company helps you collect securely online data. So focus groups, interviews, discussion boards, and we just had a webinar with them this week, and it's great, really interesting software, but it has more security than Zoom when you're doing your research. So I think the company sees that this is it's part of the future, and so they're embracing that. And like Julia said, we're all working from home still. I think our company actually says we're work from anywhere company now, which means we can have colleagues all over the world, which is really exciting, because then you get more input and new ideas too from that. So happy to share more about the research Silvana collected too during this, but that's me. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Stacy. The slogan people use here is live in the sun, work in the clouds. So that's the
I like that.
That's the motto here to get people to come to. We have enough people now. You don't all have to come to Florida. So thank you so much, Dan. So what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a great motto to have. It may be less applicable if you work in Scotland like we do, but yeah, we suddenly were doing a lot of work in the cloud. I think there's two kind of sides of it. There's kind of the employees and the kind of company impact, and then what happened to the community as well. And I think it's probably a pretty similar story. I mean, we were already mostly doing remote working. And then suddenly, it was lockdown. I wasn't able to access the office and so on. But we already had systems to kind of, reroute phone calls and stuff like that. So it wasn't a kind of huge impact there. I think the slightly crazy thing was, so we launched Quirkos Cloud 2 months before. So that was kind of our online collaborative platform. And we were like, okay, great. We'll have a nice, gentle introduction to this. And then, 2 months later, the lockdown hit, and then everybody wanted to be using that platform. So I think, as Julia was saying as well, there are a lot of people who couldn't get access to labs or their desktop computers. So we were dealing with dozens of emails, handing out free licenses for people so they could use other computers at home. We gave everyone like a 6-month free trial of the Quirkos Cloud so they could work anywhere and they could use the collaboration. Because, as Julie was saying, like previously teams were used to just working together in the same office. And suddenly they needed a way to remotely collaborate. So we had our user base from everything like triple within about 3 months. It was absolutely crazy time. But it's just like when I look back on it, it's just it was pretty nuts. It took us a long time to kind of catch up with all that. Really, we hired new staff to deal with the backlog of just like invoices and stuff like that. But I think somebody at the time said, and this kind of chimes with what Stacy and Julia was saying. I think somebody said that COVID didn't create anything kind of new. It just accelerated things that were happening already, I think. And so a lot of the stuff like, more people wanted to work from home, and more people did want to meet virtually, and more people were thinking about data collection virtually. We suddenly had to deal with a lot of requests from PhD students who'd been planning to do data collection online. I was actually mentor for someone who was supposed to be going to Zimbabwe to do their data collection in person and suddenly couldn't do that. And so helping them kind of pivot their methodology towards being able to do virtual interviews. It was a crazy time. And I think if you had kids at that time as well, it was additionally crazy. But I mean, just in the meeting before, I mean, Ron was saying how the TQR journal the number of submissions had increased over that period of time and not gone down. And that's kind of what we found at Quirkos as well, like the interest in the virtual platform, Quirkos Cloud, because you can do that live collaboration, like, yeah, tripled, but then didn't go back down. Like the demand has continued to increase. So I think a lot of people have found, hopefully, more ways that they can work, more accessible ways that they can work. Yeah, and it's helping the community kind of make the most of that and yeah, support them in all the different ways they want to work and collaborate.
One of my favorite quotes of this about the future is from William Gibson. He says the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like
yeah.
what you're saying is that kind of in that positioning. And so I think what is to me, and my observations of the three of you all, it's kind of like here, being in South Florida, we were always prepared for different kinds of emergencies, normally hurricanes, going off campus, on campus, and having everything backed up. So for us, it was just another risk management thing we had to do. But I think the values of your companies are also important, and obviously community is one of them. And also the idea of being innovative and creative. And I think that's something I see was a theme across there. One of the challenges we're seeing here at the university, maybe some of you are seeing this elsewhere, because of the flexibility with the technology and because people can work where they want, are you seeing challenges with keeping your workforce and keeping folks in place because or do you have to spend a lot more money to keep the people? What are you all seeing in terms of that and your respective companies?
Maybe I'll start from XCDA. There's more opportunity to add people to the workforce that are not located in the same town. So it's more of a positive impact. We actually didn't see many people leave or go somewhere else. So for us, I'd say this is more of a positive side effect that COVID has brought.
Yeah, I would agree with Julia. Like I said, it's work from anywhere. It was changed at first. I think they're trying to figure out, we had offices in Boston, UK, Australia, and trying to figure out, should we have people come back? At first they were like, when it was a little bit safer, people had the vaccine. They asked us to come in like 1 day a week, which actually was fun. It was nice seeing people because we hadn't seen people in person. But then that sort of went away, and they were hiring people across the United States, across Europe, across Asia. It's a different world. And so that's when they decided, where I think our corporate headquarters officially is going to be in Denver, Colorado now, but everyone's everywhere. So, and that's a challenge, because how do you keep a company's culture going where, because I think one of the things that with all our softwares, everyone has a lot of passion of creating software that's going to help researchers do your work. And to keep that passion going as a company, you do, I think, have to get together, face to face once in a while. And so now I think they're trying to do like quarterly meetups, even if it's in a region, right? So maybe not the whole company, but at all the time, maybe that'll be once a year. But, and I think that's a really good idea, because I think you get that different energy when you're together in person. So I'm glad the company is going that way. But yeah, I think it's honestly been a lot of a positive for us too.
Yeah, I think us too. I mean, when we've hired, it's just changed. I mean, we had international hires before, but now, yeah, we'll consider anyone from anywhere. Yeah, and we have always kind of like very flexible work culture, and everyone does 4-day weeks, but you can work kind of any hours within that. And so that was kind of appealing to a lot more people. It made recruitment a lot more time consuming, because we'd have so many more applicants, because people, if you're happy to work remote work, you can apply from all over the world. I think that's given us a better pool of candidates. Yeah, Stacy, what you said about, yeah, just managing to kind of keep the company culture together, and just social elements of it has been like a bit of a challenge. We had like a really epic virtual Christmas party this year, with lots of kind of games and challenges and stuff. That was a lot of fun. But it's something I miss. Yeah, for sure.
You know, you've all really spoken to the culture, your company's culture, and you know, in the States, with equity, diversity, inclusion. I know it's not just here, but kind of can become something overly politicized. But the one word that seems to be that people don't seem to have an issue with is a sense of belonging, and it seems that that's something that you all are trying to maintain in your culture. That regardless of where someone is in the world, that they feel a sense of belonging in your respective organizations.
Yeah.
Mm.
Julie, you want to go first? We'll just keep going around.
Yeah, I want to expand like the belonging to also the community. We have not just the people working in the office, but we have like one of the guidelines of MaxQDA is that we're rooted in research. So we try to just stay really, really connected with the research community and have just academic specialists from different areas come into the office once in a while. And we have a yearly conference that has been going on for over 20 years called the MQIC. That was suddenly not possible. It was an in-person conference in Berlin. And so we created an online conference instead really quickly. And it was like the first time we did it. It was quite an adventure, but it was so successful. And it was so much joy to see all of the countries that people were able to join from, that we have now decided that we're going to keep this. Even when we go back to the live conferences, we also want to have the virtual conferences, because when you come together in like a conference like this and you share your research, it just creates a sense of community. You're not on your own, like there's other people facing the same type of issues, COVID or not COVID. And it also makes it so much more accessible that people who don't have the funds or just the ability to travel, they can also access all of these all of the knowledge and all of the networking opportunity. So yeah, belonging is really, it's an important thing, but not just for the company, also for the whole community, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that was really well spoken. I agree. And now we did a virtual conference for the first time in 2020. And I agree, it was very well received, a lot of positive. We're actually going to do another one as a Lumavero conference, and again in September. But the community, so what I'm finding is, because we've created this community around our software in Vivo, Sotavi, and now trying with the other ones, is that the company really said we want to have a best practices and have researchers be able to share what they're doing, right, with each other and with the overall community. And that's what I've tried to do with my team is have that kind of feel to it. So, I do a podcast. It's okay if you don't mention our software. You do a webinar. It's okay. You're talking about your research. And then, and if some people want to, that's fine, but that's not the main goal of it. And I really appreciated that from the company, because I think that brings a sense of belonging outside. And what I'm seeing is, because I've had this experience working with our customers doing this, creating this community and interactions. We just had a meeting yesterday inside the company. It's with HR, and it's actually called the Culture Club, because we're trying to bring, multiple companies together. So that's a whole nother challenge. And I actually said, I think we have to get in front of each other more, and I think we should do sort of what we've been doing with the customer community and bring it inside to our company and have smaller meetings, because like we have people from another company, they don't know, they need to learn in Vivo. So let's have, presentations and talks in that way, so people can get to know each other, but also learn why people are passionate about our software and the work they do. And so I think that's always that's more of a challenge being virtual, because like you're just don't have those interactions. Like you can't go to somebody's office and chit chat with them like you did before to build those relationships. So I think it's on all of us, not just with customers, but also with our internal employees and colleagues, to make more of those situations where people can feel like they're belonging in the company.
Yeah, it's so sorry. So I didn't say so. So I'm the director of Qualcomm. So a lot of this stuff has kind of fallen on my head. And my background is in qualitative research. I was like a postdoc qualitative researcher for quite a long time. So I don't really have like a management corporate background at all. It's something I've had to learn very quickly. But I think, yeah, it's something I don't really see it as a sense of belonging, but like I want everyone to feel that they're like a part of it, like that, and they're able to. I think it's my job to make sure they're able to contribute like as much as they can, like they can give their best self in their working hours. And that's been a challenge because we now have like 2 members of staff that I've never met in person, and like we've never had a face-to-face meeting with. They've never been to the office, and it used to be the office kind of like felt like a bit of the heart of it, but like increasingly I guess that's become less important. So it's kind of, the question is like, what does it mean to belong to Quirkos? And then I mean, I think Julia and Stacy both talked about kind of like values and beliefs, and like I think for us, like it's also about accessibility. Like Julie mentioned about accessibility for virtual conferences being really good. And I think accessibility has always been the kind of core mantra at Quirkos. Like the software should be easy to learn, it should be cheap, you shouldn't have to pay for training and so on. But it's also about the most number of people being able to kind of use it and contribute to it as well. And I think it's also kind of about accessibilities kind of like helps the staff as well, and trying to change the culture around the staff so that they're able to contribute that best thing. Like if they have a particular way of working, they have particular backgrounds and needs and interests to kind of use that to drive the company forward. Let people, don't be afraid to let the employees kind of change the company and change the direction, so they're contributing their best, that everything they can, I guess.
Well, let's talk about that word change. So what do you see going forward? It will be changing. And we haven't all signed non-disclosure agreements, so certainly whatever you've got in the works and things like that. But so, it's to say the same, be different, new, stop. So where do you see things going now as we're kind of in this kind of transition? And obviously there's developments that are not really necessarily COVID related. The thing that's I think every other day or every other minute I see something about the chatbots are coming, and artificial intelligence. And are we a profession that's going to be replaced by artificial intelligence soon? Or so where is qualitative data analysis going, or the whole kind of data enhanced process of this? Let's kind of reverse the order. Like, well, we start with Dan and go Stacy, Jill. We'll go reverse order. So Dan, where's Quirkos going?
Okay, I can tell you plenty about where Quirkos is going, and then I have a big rant about this AI type stuff. So I'll try and keep that short and relatively simple. So I think again, so Quirkos is going, as I said, like it didn't seem that there was anything particularly new that came out of COVID, but it accelerated a lot of things that was already happening. So we already wanted to have like a cloud platform because people wanted to do live collaboration. So that's is much faster than we anticipated. Is like compared to the offline license is now like the primary tool that people use. We now have a web app which basically does everything the desktop does. And again, that was on planning for a long time. But again, suddenly you don't have an IT department that will let you install software on your computer. And so these kind of things suddenly, you still have an IT department, but they might not have access to your computer anymore. And so the need for these things kind of accelerated. The growth of digital data collection and the need for transcripts. So one of the things that we're doing in the next couple of months in April is releasing an automated transcription service, which is a bit different because it's end-to-end encrypted, and we think it's the first that does this. So nobody, not even us, has access to the data. It's not shared with any third parties. So it takes a different approach to kind of confidentiality and data security. But this is one of those things. It's based around a machine learning model. And so a lot of these questions about the ethics and accuracy and the biases of these models, comes into play in a very practical way for us. So it's something that we kind of want researchers to be aware of. I think so. There are opportunities from that. As far as I can see, we've spent like 3 years evaluating different machine learning models for speech to text, and this is the one which is the most inclusive and the most accessible because it's the best with different accents and languages and stuff, and that's really important. But we've also spent a long time looking at things like automated coding and AIs for generating text and understanding text. And I've still not seen anything, and ChatGPT is a prime example of this, anything that actually understands what it's talking about. It can give you very convincing nonsense because it's very good at formulating a grammatical sentence, but there's no necessity that it is actually accurate in what it's saying. And that's not the aim of these models. That's not really what they were trained for. And when it comes to qualitative analysis, we spent a lot of time looking at kind of automated coding. And yeah, we've evaluated systems where you can throw your data at it and it would do fine, basic sentiment analysis or very basic topics. These people are talking about buses. These people are talking about trains. Okay, fine. But it doesn't understand what people are talking about, and it doesn't understand the lived experience. And I think we're a very, very long way from, you can quote me on this, a very long way from these machine learning tools being able to understand the human experience. And in the kind of research that we're doing, which our users are doing very small, in-depth qualitative projects, usually around issues around inequalities and accessibility and the wicked problems in society. And these tools can't understand that. They can do the very basic, first pass coding. They're not going to do themes that they don't seem to be able to understand and create hypotheses. And for me, that's such an important part of the qualitative analysis process. So I don't see very much threat to qualitative researchers there, but I hope there are opportunities to, make some things quicker and more efficient maybe in the future. So we'll see.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I agree with a lot of what you just said. I think from Lumivero with change is the company is really trying to work with research data and research across we're calling it a data landscape. So going from, throughout the research process, how can we help researchers with that? And so that's what you're seeing when we're acquiring new companies. That's where the focus is around that research process. And it became quite clear, even before COVID happened, that people work collaboratively and they work with people from all over the place. So it's, you're not just working with your colleagues at your organization, you're working with people in different countries and different organizations, and people are used to using like Google Docs. They're used to being able to share very easily with people. And so that's where, I think our software, we need to do that. And that's why, NVivo 14 is coming out very soon, and it does have real-time collaboration, but with all the strength of what you can do with NVivo with queries and stuff. So it doesn't take anything away from that in-depth analysis, but it will make it, and I've used the beta and it does do it quite well. And so excited for that to come out relatively soon. But even before COVID, with the last version, we had NVivo transcription, and that's a web-based app. We acquired Satavi, which for reference management, and that always had a cloud-based project. So you could, anywhere, any team member, you could work on your lit review together, and so on. So that's where I see the biggest change, is that there's a need for that, but then on the same thing, you have to be careful with ethics and privacy and security, and that comes up obviously all the time with people because we work, I know all of you do, with different sectors. So it's the academic sector, but it's the government sector, the commercial sector, nonprofit, and all of them have different requirements a lot of times for privacy and security, and so it's trying to meet those demands that still allows people to do their research. And then I was thinking with the AI, so, you know, we do have AI, we have auto coding and some different things like that with themes and sentiment, but you know, I talk about it and I might show it, but I always say this is a way to look at your data across everything, but it's not, you know, you're still going to have to do your coding, like, and to Dan's point, it's like a broad brush, right? It's the first wave of coding it might help you with, but to get to the deep analysis and do more of the axle code, you know, the real deep coding, you're going to do that, right? That you know, the software is not going to do that for you. But and I remember I was a 6th grade social studies teacher a long time ago, and we had Channel 1 came into our school, and that was hyped as, we're not going to need teachers anymore. We're going, you know, just have these people on TV or, you know, whatever at the time, that was a long time ago. And do that. And, you know, that company didn't last. Like, I just don't see how AI is going to replace that, you know, what qualitative researchers do, which gets to the why and, you know, the real heart of things. It's going to be very hard, I think, for a long time for AI to do that. So I just, from that one experience I had, you know, teachers are still here and they're still needed. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think I can connect to that quite well. I mean, I listened to a podcast that was from Christina Silver. She has a podcast named Cactus Chat, and she interviewed Odo Kukarts, Professor Odo Kukarts, who is the founder of MaxQDA, about the future of QDA software. And he made a point that I think is very relevant, that QDA software it's not somewhere out in the open. It's used for qualitative research, and qualitative research is trying to make sense of the world. And so we have to follow the technological trends of the world. And but also for the commercial researchers who are just trying to get quick results, get a sentiment analysis, compare sentiments across 2 large data sets. Like, I think they will use AI more broadly than the main qualitative researchers who have to adhere to the quality standards of their research. So we're kind of like, even if we could technologically build it into MaxQDA, what if researchers can't use it because then their papers aren't accepted because it's not them that came to a categorization or an interpretation. So we have to follow the research community and what will they make of ChatGPT. Like, I've seen the first papers pop up, and we're of course watching all of them closely, but I think there's going to be some research, like, where can it be used and where shouldn't it be used? And I think just also, like, human interaction is so complex. All of the contextual, the cultural, the historical information that humans are able to decipher. So when 2 people talk to each other, one person might not speak the words that they mean, and then the second person is not listening, is not hearing what the other person said. So there's so much going on in human brains. It's going to be such a long time until the computer can really replace that, if ever. And then just when we created the sentiment analysis, we looked at all of the words and all of the rules, like, when is a word positive, when is it negative? And there's so many words, like the word cancer, which in a medical context is probably a really bad word. But when you're talking about astrology, it's not a bad word. And in the German language, it can also mean just a crab, which is a nice, funny animal. So there's so much context information that you have to teach the computers. The human brain is so complex. I think it will, of course, help a lot of people just try to make quick sense, find some topics, find some themes, get a rough score, and also just compare those rough results. But then you have to go in, if you, like, the real true qualitative researcher will want to go in and touch the data themselves and think about them for a while.
Yeah, in therapy, we always say the client answers the question, sort of. Is that in that, that quality, that kind of going back and forth with that. And, from a TQR perspective, we're seeing in terms of who's writing the papers. Maybe if the software can help people improve their writing, that might be a good thing. There's discussions now whether the software would be listed as a co-author on these papers. So things we may have never considered before may be quite common. So Sally and Dan, what are your thoughts so far, what we've been chatting about?
I had a question. All three of you have been very personable and put a really human face on your companies. It's just been fantastic listening to you. And you all talk about being international in focus. So my question is, for those parts of the world that are not so well resourced, the universities that don't have money, practitioners out in the communities who don't have money, who maybe do community-based work in Africa or whatever. What is your company's reaction to these sorts of places? Do you have accommodations for people who can't pay the freight for the software? I know your guys are companies and you're trying to make a profit. So how do you balance that with trying to make it accessible to people who maybe can't afford it?
I can take that. I'm sure we all can, but yes, that's very important to us. So, we just had a discussion yesterday about countries and customers in Africa. So, I do a ton of webinars and they're open to everyone. And we get, I would say 30% of the people that attend and register are from, countries in Africa, in Pakistan, Turkey, places that, yes, the pricing we have is not affordable for them. And so we were just having a discussion about, no, yes, we need to take that into consideration. And, we have different pricing because we have partners around the world too that are basically resellers, but they not just resell, they also train people and do events too. And so we will have different pricing for different parts of the world. And one of the great things about I've seen with the community, and I think I know Janet Solomon's seen this with Sage Method Space too, that with her community work, is that we're getting tons of people coming in from countries that don't always have the resources, and all our events are free, right? So they're hearing from some of the top or leading researchers in the field that they're doing in their country, whether it's grounded theory or thematic analysis, and they have that opportunity to learn from those experts where they probably wouldn't have, otherwise. And we just get great. I mean, that's one of the best parts of my job is I get this great feedback from people saying, thank you for this webinar. This helped me so much. Or, there's no way I could have gone to something like this on my own. And I think that's just so gratifying and so nice. So I think the goal is to do more of that and to accommodate different parts of the world that, yeah, they do have those challenges.
Yeah, I'll go next. It's the market is differently sized, so it's possible to go in countries that don't have much resources more on a more personal basis and talk with different projects directly. And then we've supported research project or research institutions with special licenses, with trainers. Our CEO has actually flown, forgot the country, and just taught somewhere really in the rural bush of Africa, taught a class. And we have a research for change, a grant to help students who don't have the money to get licenses so they can hand in their papers, they can win a prize. And of course, we always support more students than the ones that win the prize. But since some communities are just harder to reach, we are also trying to just strengthen the trainer network. So we have a lot of trainers, and also we work with resellers in different countries, because of course, based in Berlin, Germany, like we don't know how the structure of a university and their purchasing strategies are in all kinds of countries, not just Africa, also Japan and China. Like it's so different everywhere that we're just trying to build local networks everywhere. But other than that, it's more of we also have pricings that are already different for different types. And of course, we have really cheap student licenses that we are more, the German word is kulant, like we're more open, depending on the location of the person who's asking, of course, to support them.
I don't know if we lost Dan. Oh, there he is. He moved around.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, the Quirkos is a big thing about our kind of accessibility initiative. And for a long time, we've had a 25% discount for everyone from, I've not found a term that I like, but yeah, developing economies. And we always take that further. We don't have a network of resellers because that actually kind of imposes different costs on these communities. So we still sell directly to different institutions across the world. But yeah, we always negotiate based on where they are. I mean, Quirkos is usually about half the price of a lot of the other options anyway. So we've seen so much interest, yeah, like in East Asia and Africa and all these different places. But it's one of the reasons that we keep thinking about things like keeping the offline version, because although, yeah, it's great if you have a very reliable internet connection to be using a cloud service, but from an accessibility point of view, we need to keep the offline version for communities that don't have that luxury and where that's an additional cost. And also making sure, another key important about accessibility is you can't have like £1,000 laptop. That can't be like the minimum spec for your software. Like you need to be able to have it run on Chromebooks and very cheap devices. And that's always been a focus of our development too, because in terms of costs, there's a cost in terms of the accessibility of the different devices as well. Yeah, we have developed a network of global trainers, and I think that's really important because they teach different things for different educational contexts. I mean, you know, universities are different, like across the world, like have different kind of grading and exam kind of standards. And so making sure that people can deliver the training in ways that, yeah, can be understood in different cultures is great. And I think the more kind of different voices we have explaining and using Quirkos in different ways, the better. And we see a lot of uptake on the global discount, and we try and make it very easy to get. So yeah, it's all part of accessibility, I think, for us.
Ron, I just have not a question and we don't have very much time, but I do have kind of an observation and an appreciation that I'd like to offer. And while I have to say that this conversation would give me the heebie-jeebies because I have not used any of this. I've always depended on my students to kind of instruct me as they learned. But I appreciated the bigger picture look and the large teams and the global locations of things and bringing people together on that large scale. I think what I appreciated most, and I think maybe many of us who are teachers would have appreciated this most, is that we work with a lot of dissertation students, and dissertations are still, for the most part, at universities, an individual endeavor. And my students have always gone to the software with the belief and the hope that it would make their analysis so much easier. And honestly, when they would bring me their results or what they learned by using the analytical software, they had to spend a whole lot of time explaining it to me. So I appreciated the comment about it can only take you so far, and you're going to have to do the rest of the legwork because it's a human enterprise and it's an interactional human enterprise. So I just wanted to say thanks. I appreciate the big picture. I also appreciate that down and dirty, really sensible sense of you have to do it.
Yeah, that's one of our commonly used comment to papers. We say it's called qualitative data analysis because you have to introduce the quality, the data, and the analysis. And so sometimes we'll get a heading and that quality is never defined. We may never get to see excerpts, and we definitely don't see you explaining how you suggest that that data are evidencing the qualities you suggest it's doing. And that's the artistry. And I so appreciate how your software helps the organization and to help bring a lot of tools together, because you can do a lot of these things, but a lot of it's making it simpler to manage all this data. And so sometimes with dissertations, they're just not producing as much data, that maybe they could kind of all do it another way. So that's something that we're looking for, is to see how that goes in the future, because I know the notion of Piaget and abstract reasoning. You got to get to the abstract reasoning to do this in terms of doing basic qualitative data analysis. And I appreciate that you all continue to strive to how to help with it. Just thinking about back in the days, the only way the software that was on Macs, because that was, you could hyperlink. And now we see more of that to be able to connect and synthesize and so forth. So I want to thank everybody today. We're kind of at our stopping point with this, and just so much appreciate your openness and your willing to share with us all. And so there've been a lot of posting in the chats there about resources that these three companies provide. So please take a look at that. Adam, why don't you tell how people can access this afterwards, including the not only the verbal and visual, but also the chat information.
Sure. So I'll go ahead and post links to all of the information they can access in the chat. But I also want to say thank you again to all three of the representatives here. I went back and looked, and we've had a relationship with all three of you for 9 years now. And I think one example that Ron likes to bring up is, we do have advertising on our web pages, but we, strategically choose folks that we think our audience would like. And so in choosing you three, it's a benefit to all of our community, because not only, do we feel like you're interesting to the folks that are coming to our website, but the resources that you all have provided that you've spoke about as well, the free webinars, the free blogs, the podcasts, the workshops. And so I'll make sure to include some of that information on the website as well. But yeah, just thank you again. I mean, these last 9 years has been great with you all, and hopefully we can continue with you guys moving forward.
Couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much. The next series of presentations start at 10:15. Look forward to be popping into different rooms along the day. Please remember we have the Max QDA Power Lunch today and the Quirkos one on Saturday. So again, thank you all so much. Take care, stay well, and I'll see you in Zoom.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.
Feel better, Ron.